Round 3 of the MGJ Engineering Circuit Rally Championship would mark the last event of 2023 before the Christmas break, and winter had certainly made its presence known here in the Midlands, with the crews waking up to some pretty treacherous conditions. Perhaps mostly as a result of the conditions, the leaderboard would make for some interesting viewing early doors. For Michael Igoe and Will Atkins, they'd reached the end of stage 3 with the lead of the rally, but it hadn't been that way from the start. A new car this weekend and a mix of that and some pretty interesting conditions out there on the stages had seen them down as far as 13th place overall on the first stage before climbing their way back up the leaderboard. Igoe had been going backwards as much as he'd been going forwards. A number of spins in the icy conditions not helping his times, including this one seen on board with John Griffiths and Emma Morrison. This short piece of onboard really showing how tricky the conditions were out there for the crews on the opening stage here at Donington Park. Saying that, it didn't seem to be a problem for Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt. They reached the end of the morning in second place. They'd been in the lead after the opening stage. The 80s back on top once more. The 6R4 clearly coping well with the conditions and showing that it still has what it takes. The car and the crew, of course. We saw their spin a minute ago, but apart from the car swapping ends from time to time, things were going well for John Griffiths and Emma Morrison. They'd been in second place, but that charge from Igoe had pushed them and the Metro down a position, both of them. They were third place for now, only 5 seconds off the lead. They come here, though, leading the championship, and it was all eyes on that 3 rounds in. For Ollie O'Donovan and Jack Morton, it would be 4th place. They'd been in 3rd, but were another crew dropping a position in the later morning stages. They were going well, though, only further 4 seconds back. David Welch and Andrew Smith make a strong start to the rally with 5th place in the Subaru. Their last event was on the gravel of the Moulton stages, so all of this gravel on the infield should be a little familiar to them at least. One crew really struggling with the conditions, and here struggling to stop on the gravel, would be Paul Murrow and Callum Cross, almost running into the back of Ollie O'Donovan. Thankfully, no contact was made, and that wouldn't be another rearranged rear end to that Hyundai after their incident at Cadwell Park. Murrow and Cross end the morning 6th place overall. For Philip House and Nick Beaumont, it will be the lead in Class D. A good start for the Escort pair. They lead the way in the 2-wheel drive crews at this stage from 7th place overall. And that lead in the 2-wheel drive crews would be over Martin Hodgson and Tony Jones. 27 seconds back overall, but they were in a different class, of course. So the Class C lead will be theirs for now too. For Paul Morgan and Sam Stafford, it will be 2nd place in that class behind Hodgson. Going well, hovering around their 9th place for the whole morning. Now just a single second back from the Escort pair. And rounding out the top 10 were Alistair Stables and Neil Jones in the Chevette. Themselves only 4 seconds back in the class as well at this stage. Outside the top 10 and some more of the Class C runners, it will be 4th place in the class for Anthony Allery and Richard Bonner, the pair in 13th overall. And for James Garner and Jordan Joynes, in that previous championship-winning car, of course, it will be 5th place in the class, around 8 seconds back on the overall times as well in 15th. One of the giant-killing performances of the morning, though, would belong to Ashley Furlong and Fiona Crump. They came out of stage 1 in 3rd place overall. Clearly quite comfortable and able to tame the icy conditions. But they weren't giving it the big one as far as Ashley was concerned. They were just trying to keep it on the road. Sadly for them, though, they would suffer with gearbox problems, slipping down the order before retiring the Clio after stage 3. So that left Chris White and Jason Harris, 3rd in Class D at this stage, behind the Clio, but with them set to disappear from the order. The standings could all change in the afternoon. For Andrew Turner and John Cope, it will be 4th in the class. The Mark II pair around half a minute back in that position in 17th place overall. John Cope getting quite used to co-driving these days. They'd have to watch their mirrors, though. Alex Stubbs and Rhys Edwards would only be 2 seconds back from them on the overall and the class standings after stage 3. In Class B, we already had a few of our crews in the top of the order, but just behind those, it will be the Evo of Sam Gendy and Samantha Bartlett taking third place in the class for now. And it would be around half a minute back to Dave Barbara and Christian Davies in that fantastic Alpha four-wheel drive. Great to see something different out on the stages, the thrum of a Subaru engine clear to hear from that Italian 80s classic. Fifth in the class will be the Evo pair of Ian Jarvis and Harry Walshaw, just a handful of seconds back in that position themselves in 37th place. And we'd see some good times being put in from our Class E runners. Joseph and Daniel Duffy in the Lotus going well to lie in 14th place overall. You'd think the conditions wouldn't suit this class, but they were going well in that little Lotus. As were, in fact, Paul Sheard and Colin Stevens. The pair had been up in 6th place overall after the opening stage, slipping down a little now to 16th overall, second in the class, but more than respectable in these conditions. For Daniel Poole and Chris Coombs in the Corsa, it will be third in the class. A good start, but they do slip down a position overall into 22nd now. George Clark and Stephen Moises would bring the Mini out once again, this time lying 4th in the class, gaining time on the overall results as well in 22nd place. And 5th in that class were Harry Pinchin and Colin Jenkins, the Citroën pair just less than a minute back in 34th place overall. It was the lead in Class F for Matt and Adrian Walk, a convincing lead as well after the morning's stages. Although that lead didn't look like changing anytime soon, it would be over Chris Worrell and Jonathan Hudson, second in the class, 46th overall. It'd be much closer to third as well. Callum and Danny Powell only 3 seconds back at this stage in the class and in 48th overall. 43 seconds back from those class podium positions at this stage would be Kay Thompson and Robert Wiggins. They'd have a 30-second comfort margin as well over Glyn and Owain Thomas, who end the morning 5th in the class and 64th on the leaderboard. So with 3 of the day's 6 long and treacherous stages complete, the leaderboard at the top of the North Side Truck and Van Donington stages was starting to shape up like this. We head back out into the afternoon then. Rain had made that ice even more treacherous in places, and the temperatures weren't helping things either. A look at some of the classes before we look at the overall results. And there'd be some change in Class F as we see Ben de Ronda and Peter Beaumont taking 5th place in the class by the finish. For Kay Thompson and Robert Wiggins, there wouldn't be any change. They stay in that 4th place, ending the event 50th overall. For Chris Worrell and Jonathan Hudson, it will be a position lost in the afternoon. Frustratingly for the pair, they dropped down to 3rd in the class, but that still is a strong result, particularly in these conditions. That means, though, it's a move to 2nd for Callum and Danny Powell, taking that position by just 6 seconds by the finish of the rally. As we had predicted, though, there'd be no catching Matt and Adrian Walk. They'd led the class from the start, taking a convincing class victory by the end of the day. In Class E, it was 5th place for Matt Wheeler and Robbie Sanford, 32nd overall in the Citroën. Harry Pinchin and Colin Jenkins had gone well, and they gained a place as well to finish the event 4th in class, 29th overall. Paul Sheard and Colin Stevens couldn't quite get back into the top 10 where they'd started the day, but they managed to end the rally 20th place overall, 3rd in the class. 2nd in the class would go to this man, Daniel Poole. Chris Coombs alongside in that wide-arched Corsa kit car, gaining that position in the afternoon as well, ending the event in 16th on the overall leaderboard. But taking the class victory will be Joseph and Daniel Duffy, Mad Max light bar on the roof in that Lotus, going well all day to take the class win from 14th overall. In Class B, we'd see a slip down to 5th for Dave Barbara and Christian Davies after they lost some time to the crews ahead in the class through the afternoon stages. And they trade places with Ian Jarvis and Harry Walshaw, the pair moving to 4th place in the class by the finish. No change for Sam Gendy and Samantha Bartlett. They remained third in the class. They hadn't really been challenging those leading crews, but their times were good, and that was a strong finish. With the Class B leaders making up most of the top 10, we'll take a look first at Class D. And for Chris and Steve Grundy, it will be a move up the results to take 5th place in the class this weekend. Alex Stubbs and Reese Edwards gain a position to move into 4th in the class, 15th on the overall leaderboard. And for Andrew Turner and John Cope, who, let's face it, is more used to being in the driver's seat, it will be a couple of places higher on the overall times in 12th. The pair doing enough today for 3rd in class. 2nd in the class would belong to a hard-charging Chris White and Jason Harris, finishing just outside our top 10 in 11th place overall. Nigel and Catherine Brain would gain a few positions in Class C. A spin in the morning, though, had lost them some time, but they did claw some back, ending the rally in 5th place in the class, 21st overall. For Anthony Allery and Richard Bonner, it will be 4th in the class. They'd end the event in 13th place overall as well in the escort. We're on to the top 10 then, and continuing the Class C standings, we see James Garner and Jordan Joins taking that 10th spot in 3rd in the class. 2nd in the class runners will be Paul Morgan and Sam Stafford. The Civic pair taking 9th place on the overall results as well, an impressive performance in difficult conditions. For Alistair Stables and Neil Jones, as exciting as ever to watch, it would be the ideal way to end the rally. They take a Class C victory, as well as moving up the overall standings to an 8th place finish. Alistair's aim of winning the championship for Class C going well so far. It would be a class victory as well for MSV instructors Philip House and Nick Beaumont. No excuses, lads, and they didn't need them either. They take the Class D win this weekend in the escort. Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt, meanwhile, weren't able to get back to the top of the results in that 80s Group B Metro 6R4. The conditions just getting the better of them. Perhaps it was those cars around them as well. The playing field not levelled as much as it has been first thing. But they do make it as far as 6th place overall, 2nd in the class. And let's face it, they won on style points. Paul Murrow and Callum Cross gain a position through the afternoon stages, ending the rally 5th place overall. Not too far off that crew up ahead either. And that crew would be the Subaru at David Welch and Andrew Smith. Despite clouting one of the chicanes early on, they keep things in the top of the order, taking a 4th place finish by the end of the day. The podium crews this weekend had opened up a good advantage in those positions, and likely to have been caught on merit with a 2-minute gap by the finish to 3rd place. And in that position will be John Griffiths and Emma Morrison, our championship leaders, of course, and looking to defend last year's title. Some good points to add to that season tally before the short Christmas break. For Irishman Ollie O'Donovan, Jack Morton alongside for this weekend, it will be 2nd place. A sensible drive from the pair, which was a little bit out of the ordinary considering Ollie's usual sideways style, but then there was a lot of experience sat beside him. But giving the new car its maiden victory will be Michael Igo and Will Atkins. They put in another strong performance to give them another maximum points finish in the championship. Not only maximum points though, but the overall rally win as well. So the 3rd round of the MGJ Engineering Circuit Rally Championship comes to a close. Here's a look back at how those overall results were decided at a treacherous Donington Park.